William Rittenhouse founded the first paper mill in North America in 1690. While little is known about the mill, we assume it was similar to European mills where Rittenhouse apprenticed. This model is representative of an early American paper mill. Although most paper today is made by machine from wood pulp, paper was once primarily made by hand from linens and cotton rags. The Rittenhouse mill received much of its linens from the local community of Germantown. When the rags were delivered, they were weighed and sorted, then piled into tubs and dampened with water. This caused the rags to ferment, which helped break down the fibers. After soaking for several weeks, the rags were rinsed and placed in hollowed-out blocks under the hammers of the Sanford beater. Driven by a water wheel, the hammers pounded up and down upon the rags until they were beaten to pulp. The beaten fibers, once added into a large vat of water, were now ready for making paper. The vat man, who formed the shapes of paper, scooped into the vat with the mold and decal. The mold was the wooden frame strung with wire, which helped the paper pulp on its screen-like surface. The decal fit on top of the mold and allowed the vat man to catch a portion of liquid pulp long enough to cross the fibers, using small shakes called strokes. These strokes helped form a strong and even sheet of paper. The vat man removed the wooden decal and passed the mold with its layer of pulp to a second worker called the coucher. The coucher lifted the mold and rocked it face down onto a woolen belt, transferring the sheet of paper. This was a rhythmic process as the vat man and coucher worked together building piles, papers, and stuff called the post. Next, the post was placed in a press by turning a long lever. The press was lowered and water streamed from between the belts. When the press was raised, the paper was strong enough to be separated from itself in stacks. This was done by a third worker, the layer, who was careful not to tear or wrinkle the damp sheets. The paper was pressed again, then divided into spurs of 4 or 5 sheets. These spurs were hung to dry over ropes using a wooden tool called the T-bar. In order to write on the paper without having ink spread on the surface of the sheet, the paper was briefly dipped into a vat of warm gelatin sizing and dried again. These papers were stacked and pressed to flatten them. A final step for many papers was burnishing. Using a smooth stone, the papermaker rubbed each sheet to create a polished surface. The papers were now inspected, counted, and packaged into bundles known as reams. They would be shipped to the printers, bookkeepers, map makers, and other consumers of this fine product. While the process of papermaking has been changed by modern industry, the importance of paper has not, as it continues to allow us to communicate and record information and serves in a host of other useful applications.